Low elos. You love them. You hate them. You get mad at them. You cry at them. You laugh at them. So many things. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Liga Low Elo Championship Season 3, showcasing spectacular blunders and how capable the human mind can get low. And it got really low. Today, I will show you 8 games of the tournament, and I will not show you the rest because they're super late, and sleep is actually precious. If I had a triple no-sugar coffee, then I would probably stay up till 6 a.m. I will not do that because I'm not a psychopath, but what I will tell you is that the League of Championships have just started, and it's Group 1, Group 3, Group 2, there's 3 groups, and tomorrow they'll play more games, and then quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. The unfortunate news is that Cole is not participating. You know, the big guy with the server and the 11,000 subscribers and free cloud I can get. Fortunately, he's not participating, but those 8 games I'm about to show you will give you huge pain in the head. Be ready. There's a lot of people here that you like. Chaos Open, Chris. There's also a bunch of people, you know, that are kind of sub to my channel and stuff like that. And yeah. Let's get ready to laugh a lot. Be sure to subscribe, join that Discord server in the description. And let me tell you, the last game of this video is really interesting. So I would advise you to stick around for this spectacular 1 hour of your time. Let's go. Alright, starting the first game is a really short one. Red Mouse with the white piece versus Unimportant. I will try to cover all of the games, no matter how small they are. Here we go. E4. C5, now the 3 of an open Sicilian, and we have knight to c6, the old Sicilians, and bishop to c4. The better way to play against this is, of course, the Rossolimo, which pretty much, if black is not prepared, they will be caught in some trouble, and an 800 playing the Sicilian, that's a disaster. So knight to f6, and as expected, an 800 playing the Sicilian means they'll play the Dragon Sicilian. That's an illusion. The Dragon is not an easy Sicilian to play. Frankly, not every Sicilian is easy to play. In fact, almost none of them. If you don't know any theory, you're gonna mess up, and you'll end up in this game. B3 is, you know, not the great approach. In here, in these positions, you're gonna go for like D6 or E6. You gotta switch it up to Khan or something. Something to fight for space here. And G6, I mean, sticking to the guns of the Dragon. B3, though, I do not understand, because you, in most Sicilian positions, you castle on the king side, and playing B3 just, you know, gives opportunities and weakness to the opponent to attack it. But this is low elo, so I don't quite care. Bishop G7, the Bishop Fianchettos, Bishop B2, D6, and the pony moves on the f7 square, which is just a pointless attacking move. You just castle out of the way, and there's nothing. But knight to e5, and now there could be problems with, you know, f4 in the future. Right now you can't, because the bishop is hanging, and if the bishop is taken, then your structure will be badly damaged. Bishop b5 check, and bishop d7, you have an exchange, and queen to e2. Okay, fantastic. So far the game is okay. What could really go wrong in this game is something, you know, someone blundering, and that's exactly what will probably happen. And after bishop h6, we have h4, setting up a nice little anchor with a5, setting up an attack. f4, knight to c6, knight d5, and knight does not move and is blundered, and after knight takes f6, fatal blunder, king gets checked, queen will be won, and probably mate in a couple of moves. Let's go to the next game. We have Red Mouse with the white pieces versus Funky Gamer with the black pieces. Both are 800s. Let's go. E4. Great start. D5, Scandinavian. This is typical loyal behavior. They play the Scandi, they play the Caro. They play E5. This is typical behavior stuff from these 900s. E takes, knight to f6. We have a gambit, kind of. If you play c4, this ain't that great, so you gotta give up the pawn. And there's also a line here. There's the Portuguese gambit. I think that's how it's called. I forgot. I don't know how it's played. But it's a gambit, and I know it. Knight to c3. Knight takes d5. And bishop to c4. In these positions, you can go d4 here. And go c4 in the future. But you need to be aware of the knight. Of taking you and creating double pawns. Bishop c4. Knight takes. And in these positions, you can go for b takes. B takes ain't as great because you do have a king in the center, but the game will probably just end up being a drawn endgame, and that's why the engine doesn't recommend it. So if b takes c3, parting ways with the a pawn, but going to build up a strong lead in the center. Knight to c6, bishop b2, kind of a little bit pointless because the bishop will be kind of stuck. So you might as well start building your center here and get a lot of central space. But that's fine. Bishop b2, bishop b6. No one has hung anything yet. Now bishop b6 is a tactical misunderstanding of the position because after takes and takes, you have double isolated e-pawns, a weak king, and simply these pawns are very hard to defend and probably will not be defended at all. Queen e2, queen d7, long castles, and this is the problem. Gotta go long castles as well. Knight to f3, and this is just a clean winning of the pawn. Almost, there is this, and after knight f3, you probably have to give the pawn up, as you can see. So yeah, not great from black's perspective. Knight to f3, and h6 for whatever reason. Trying to prevent the knight from hopping to f7. We have queen to e3, slight little movement of the queen. I don't know what that's about. And g5, the top engine move, trying to get some space and trying to kick out the knight. Do not expect that move to be played, but it is played. c4, discover attack. You shouldn't really be disconnecting your pawns like that with c4. You know, those pawns could become weaknesses in the long run. You are lucky to have this move to connect your pawns a little bit, but in some cases these one move attacks could cause some problems, especially when it can just be shrugged off like this. Knight to e5, most likely another trade, and here it is, bishop g7, and as you can see, we're gonna have yet another trade. As it looks like, we're pretty much gonna look at the drawn endgame. A little unnecessary. King b is a little bit more natural, to move your king. But it's okay, b6. Now, b6 could create some, light square liability like this. For example, this could be a little bit of a liability, so you need to be aware of your light squares. Rook b1 and hangs just a clean pawn. I mean, just a clean one mover. If you want to move a rook, why not move this one and attack that pawn? I'm now playing this game. Rook b1, queen d4 check. Not taking the free little pristine pawn, but instead giving a check, trading queens, and letting them consolidate, because that's what 900s do. Rook f8, another one move attack, and rook h8 to f1. You probably should have played f3, not gonna lie. And now we have a6, trying to get the king to the cover. You don't have to. This is an endgame. In the endgame, the kings need to be in the center. And right now, black's king is faster. King to c3, trying to catch up. Rook d to f4, f3, g4, trying to win the rook. If you take my pawn, I take your rook. This is kind of smart. But rook b to e1, rook f to rook 4 to f6. There's some weird coordinates. And rook e3, just slight little positional grinding, maybe they're trying to get the double pawns, I don't know. G takes, rook e takes f3, rook takes, g takes, not rook takes and going into this endgame, which would probably be slightly better for white, because black structure is horrendous. So is white's, but white's pawns are a bit more connected. There's more isolated pawns for black, which are even a bit more weaker, because they're doubled. And isolated, but g takes, going for this endgame. Now I don't even know who's going to win this, because the rooks are fast, all pawns are kind of slightly weaker. King d7, king d4, c5 check, and king c3. You really should be going with your pawns and not moving away from the center if you're in the endgame, but fine. Rook g8, you probably have to defend your pawns in something like this. Instead of that, with a3, moving the pawn, rook g2, and guess what? They play h4, which is the second top engine move, or third, or fourth, I don't know, depends how deep your engine is. h4, rook h2, that pawn falls, but you could go for these pawns, and they're very weak, and after this, you can go this, threaten a draw. That's what the engine wants. Instead of that, we have d4, which essentially gives away all the advantage, because all black has to do is take and take. Preferably this pawn, because what's the difference between the c pawn and the h pawn? Well, the h pawns are just way harder to defend against because they're like outside, they're in the corners of the chessboard, and the c pawns are just kind of in everything, and you can stop them with your kings. So taking the h pawn would have been the better choice. Now the engine is just a hater. It's still fine. You're still up a pawn, but it's better to target the corner pawns and not the central pawns where the kings are. Rook f2. And unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, those one-move blunders will catch up. And we have king e3 checking the king and taking the rook. And, you know, the rest of the game is just red mouse converting. There's nothing to talk about. Makes a queen and starts BMing the hell out of their opponent. Because let me tell you something right now, folks. You need to BM your opponent if they do not resign in a position like this. Look at this. Look at this. If red mouse made a rook here... I wish they get 500 ELO points in the next 3 days. That would be very suspicious, but I trust on calm algorithm, but we don't talk about that. And yeah, you get it, the rest of the game is just, you know, checkmating. And yeah, this was Red Mouse win. 2 wins back-to-back. That's impressive. Let's go to the next game. Alright, folks. Let's switch the board here. We got Funky Gamer, the black pieces, and Unimportant with the white piece. That's their username. That's how they're called. D4, D5. Okay, so far so great. I love D4 positions. I believe D4 positions are, you know, a little bit more slow, a little bit slower, a little bit, you know, better for the grind. You know, patience. That's what you need in D4 positions. Well, Unimportant just disappoints me with the London system, which, if you know me, I'm a long hater of the London system. I just don't like it. It's too basic, too nothing, too vanilla. There's no really rhyme or anything with the London. I just hate it. And there's a lot of counters for it that are good, like this gambit here, or knight f6 and then c5. These are just, you know, the meta, how to counter the London. But we have knight to f6 and knight to c6, the 2 knights London, which is actually not the greatest response. But you know what? These are 800s. They get to break all the principles and still win. White consumed, obviously, some YouTube content, and e6, locking in the bishop. You should probably just play kind of symmetrical London, and, you know, white would probably have to go for c4, the Watts Gotham chess for the London system. But c3, after e6, we have c3. So far, so good. Everything is normal. Bishop d6 and bishop g3, sticking to the guns of the London. Takes and 8 takes. Okay, so in the London system with black, you really should not be taking the bishop with the bishop, because this can happen, and now white has a target. Knight to e4, planning the knight bd2, and a6, which is a small positional oversight because you can simply take this pawn, create the double pawn structure, and force f5, which you could use to your advantage by taking over the light squares. And after that's done, you can sacrifice your queen, get the rook, get the queen, you're up a pawn, congratulations, now you win the game. Instead of that, we have bishop d3. Obviously, the 800 did not see a 4-move combination, so yeah, bishop d3, that's far more natural. f5. Screwing the knight in. That's some good positional chess. The engine wants sword castle, which is horrendous. I don't know why you would completely shut off the h-file. Queen c2, putting some pressure, but it does nothing. Queen f6, and giving up the bishop pair for the knight. Not the bishop pair, the bishop. I don't know why I said pair. It should have been better to take with this if you didn't, you know, have to be careful of this. But in a scenario, you should probably be giving your knight away more often than not, because the bishop is just a better piece, you know, behind those dark square pawns. In this case, fine, you can be excused, and knight to h2. The better move is, you know, I don't know, this, like knight g1 to try and reroute to h3. That's my opinion. You just have a little bit more activity, because in a perfect world, your knight goes to like this, to this square, which can put pressure on the king side. Knight h2 though, fine, castles, knight b3, miracle saving that king from checkmate. Queen h6, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Long castles. There we go. We're gonna have a fun game. What do you know about long castles and short castles? Well, if people do opposite side castling, you need to beat them up with your pieces, your pawns, your everything. This is gonna be an aggressive game. Or is it? b6 is not great. I know it says b6. You know, if you go b5, I think there's like, you know, taking advantage of all the holes in the position. No 800 will do that. That's too complicated for them. You want aggressive chess, not putting the knights in good squares to like exert pressure and suffocate your opponent. No, you don't want that. No. b6. Fine, knight g4. Queen z6, queen e2. Defending the knight. You really should be just, finding opportunities. Sometimes the better defensive move is the one that also prepares an attacking move. Doubling up the bricks and also defending the knight. Queen e2, fine. Knight to e7. I don't know what black is doing. They just gave up that sweet-looking square. Rook h2, of course, that does not get spotted. Knight to c6. Look. Knight e7. Knight c6. They're not going to go for a draw. They're on the attack and you're going to get a repetition? Hell no, you don't do that. h6. There's a sack here. Knight takes h6 check, which is spotted by the 800. Ooh, that's spotted. Now, the reason is after you take and take, you have to slide your queen to g6, to g5, and somehow you survive a little bit of this attack. Like you go here, and after this, you need to move your king. Somehow you survive this, but it's really uncomfortable, and I don't know how an 800 would, handle this. So queen c7. It's -5. Why is it -5? Because after queen to h5, the light squares are simply destroyed. You don't have an escape square. And the only way to escape is to sack your queen. Bishop b7, the only try that does not sack a queen. Guess what it does? It loses a queen via a pin. Rook h8 check, however, goes for this line. King f7, queen h5, and this is simply destruction. And guess what? It's mate in one. Unfortunately for Funky Gamer, this did not end well. It's fine. He still has chances to win the next games tomorrow. But so far, it just doesn't look that great. Yeah. Next game. Okay, we have the next game. Chris with the black pieces versus just a chessy boy with the white pieces. Let's go. We have a Sicilian defense. We have a good, solid opening from the 1087 ELO. Alpine Sicilian, I hate my life. Anyway, so the Alpine Sicilian is like what I consider to be like the 7th layer of hell, personally. Because I just don't like it. The position is too dry, there's nothing to play for. And a lot of beginners are playing the Alpine against the Sicilian. I fell to that sin as well when I was like 900, 800. Apart from that, I'm just a big hater of the opening. So there's nothing wrong on a strategical standpoint with the Alpine. It's just the position gets dry, and there's only like a couple responses. I play like e6 to try to get in a Ferenc advance or an exchange because I like these positions. But Chris doesn't and plays d6. Now d6 is actually one of the really bad lines that people play, and clearly the guy that played the Alpine is watching Gotham Chess because he's playing exactly what he was told to play. So yeah, these low elo players do consume a lot of YouTube content. So do I, but C takes, G6. Chris still thinks he's playing a Dragon Sicilian. You're not playing the Dragon Sicilian. In fact, you should be fighting with E6 to try and gain some space back. But G6. This is okay for now. Knight f3, Bishop G7, Knight f6, and Knight C6 need to be played. Bishop e2, and now the horrendous e5. When I saw this move, I dropped out of my seat because e5 is so counterintuitive. So e5 is simply just a waste. I mean, you're not gonna if you take, then you just waste time. You let them develop, and you got an isolated queen pawn and poor development, and white is gonna get all the development they need. But instead of that, we have d5, giving black enough advantage to black to try and fight. Knight to e7, trying to unclog everything. Castles, knight c3, and b6 for some unknown reason. b6 is a waste of a move. You need to fight on the king side. You need to unclog the center, make your bishop stronger. Simply, this is no longer a Sicilian. We're playing Chris's system at this point. We're playing the Chris system. So yeah, the Chris opening, I should say. You get crisscrossed applesauce. Bishop g5, h6, creating a small little weakness on the h6 square, but it's fine. Bishop takes c7, queen takes c7, knight b5. The knight goes for a ride. I don't know where that knight is going to end up. You really should be focusing on getting your rooks in the game, getting your queen in the action. Maybe later you reroute the knight, but knight b5 has no threat. I don't know what knight b5 does. I guess you want to go rook c1 to threaten the fork, but he's going to see that. And bishop a6. The better move, actually, funnily enough, is a6, but I don't quite like that because the structure does get softened up a little bit. But it's a little hard to understand. Bishop a6, a4, screwing the knight in. Knight d7, rook c1, there it is. Takes, and bishop takes, correct approach. And now simply black will be taking the pawn. The outpost square, and then you would go f3 and trying to get rid of this outpost knight somehow. Rook f to c8. I don't understand why this rook was not the one who was supposed to be moved, but fine, you do anything you want. Rook f c8. Takes. Do not trade rooks and give away your file. You really should not be doing that. You have to be the one inviting the trade, not the one making it. Knight to c5. There are cases you can, of course, do the trade and then put a rook immediately back on the file. Rook e1, really you should be moving your knight. Your knight is not doing anything. You can also go f3 and then move the knight somewhere else and then go rook c1. It's a little complex, but you know what happens. Rook e1, a6, the bishop is kicked out, and bishop c4. The better move, according to the engine, is a bishop to c6 because the knight doesn't have any forward movement, and if it goes back, it probably will get taken. Bishop c4 instead, queen b7, going to support b5, and now b5, and takes, bishop f1, h5, b4. We have achieved some sort of position, and knight to a6, and queen to b1. I don't understand why queen b3 was not chosen, but fine. Queen b1, and now bishop h6, slight attacking of the knight, knight f3, and rook f8, and knight to h4 simply hangs a pawn to a fork. Actually, according to the engine, you don't take this pawn. There are some lines where you might lose it, but honestly, you do gain the pawn back. If you do take this, it's just the black uses that time to attack your stuff. So that's why the engine doesn't want it. But the engine is just a piece of crap. So king h7, bishop d3. King h7, if you want to support f5, because you're clearly preparing it, you should be going king g7, not king h7. Because if you go to king h7, well, now bishop d3, and you just can't play f5 at all. In fact, I would argue h3, g4, and f4 could be incoming. Queen b6, and now rook e2. And now rook c8, and now black is the advantage because they're taking over the c-file. So if you wanted to fight with the c-file, there's nothing to defend here, so go here, but the bishop is there. So yeah, rook e2. I guess the engine finds this as a big waste of time. Takes, and you have to take with the bishop, unfortunately. You take the queen, and you lose the pawn, and apart from losing the pawn, you lose the bishop, and now you get queen traded. And according to the engine, this queen trade is wrong. Why? This is the top engine move because you don't have to be the one initiating the trade and bringing the king closer. That's very, very hard to understand. In fact, when queen f1 arrived on the board, I was immediately take the queen and push the pawn. Unfortunately, f5. You really should be focusing on creating an anchor with your pawn like this or like this. And simply the pawn will be promoting, and by the time the knight comes, you simply get your king to active. Like, let's say in a hypothetical scenario, by the time the knight arrives to get rid of your anchor, like here, you're in time with counterplay with f5 and creating like sufficient weaknesses on the position. You can also give away the thing. So yeah, and simply, even though you do win this, black is in time to smash the fort, no pun intended, get to your pawns, and you lose the race. So yeah, and this is basically what happens. King takes f1, f5, and the game proceeds in this fashion with white getting forked in the face and simply just losing all the remaining materials, and eventually they got mated. Let's go to the next game. Alright, next game we have with the white pieces, someone called Kai with a K and an I. And just a chessy boy with the black pieces. Actually, the person with white pieces is a member of my Discord server, so shout out to him. Salute. d4, d5, and the only thing that ruins this game for me is that it's a London system. Are you fucking kidding me? We're gonna see the London system a lot in this championship. I am sorry if you hate the London system, but you will see it a lot. I'm sorry. It's the beginner favorite, and there's a lot of ways to punish it. C5, the counter gambit, knight f6, and then c5. There is, oh, hold up, we went a little bit ahead. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to play against the London, but if you're a little too passive, like knight to c6, double knights, um, it's actually not that great. And simply an e6 and bishop e7 in this move, I mean, black is not fighting for anything, and white is just playing their setup. And look at that, queen c2 already targeting some weaknesses. And a6, and you know, as the game progresses, I think white will go to the long and go h4, h5, but black is making it very clear he will be attacking on the queen side. Bishop g5 and b5, already attacking nothing. There's nothing on the queen side, there's no need to be attacking. But we have bishop takes f6. Okay, little piece of advice: if you don't have to take immediately, you can take, it's fine. Sometimes it's okay to keep them waiting. Wait for h6, then take the knight. Kind of force them to make a weakness. You could attack with your pawns. So bishop takes f6 and bishop takes f6 and free pawn. But it's not actually too lost. And now the bishop goes back to d3, knight h7, h4. There it is. Finally, the engine has woken up from its sleep and says it's plus 1.4. So it is bad. But black has to fight with counterplay on the queen side. That is not going to happen. Knight to f5. And simply, you would attack this. There's nothing wrong with it. You just attack that. It's fine. If they take your pawn, you shut them down like this. And then you take this. And then you go here, you fork them, you win a piece, congratulations. h5, however, we push the pawn. Knight h4, and simply just taking this, and then g3. You should be playing like something like this, you get them out of the way, and then push the pawn forward, keep attacking, but it's fine, g3, fine, you get a little scared. Bishop g5, and f4, the attack continues to go forward. Bishop h6, and long castles. The engine wants knight to f3, so you can go g4, g5, but let me tell you something right now. This is peak chess from this 800. The only thing I hate about this was a London system, and it's working out for them. f5 and rook h to g1. The better move, once again, by the engine is knight f3, because you take advantage of these bad boys right here. Those weak little dark squares are very good opportunities. In a perfect world, you could end up forking somebody. You could end up forking somebody with your knight. And actually, I think you don't even take the rook here. The engine wants this. So yeah, but of course you would take the rook. So yeah, rook h to g1 and rook f6. We have a plan, I guess. g4, threatening a fork. g6, getting forked, but do not get forked. Okay, so you went g4, obviously, if you get taken, fine. I guess you take, and then your plan was this, and then you would take and complicate this further. But g6, and you're like, oh, I already posted the pawn, and it didn't take me. Oh, wait, but I have this! But you don't play it, what did you hope? That it would just skip the pawn completely and get forked anyway? I don't know. Don't tell me. Okay, rook takes, and g takes, and rook takes, and rook takes, and e takes, and free pawn. Okay, so far so good. Queen is out. Bishop is protecting the king. King is butt naked in the corner. The other king is just living the good life. Queen h4 and simply check and f5. Oh no, my pawn. But actually, oh no, your king is hanging and get mated, and Kai wins the game. And we go to the next one. We have Chessy Boy with white pieces versus Chaos Open with the black pieces. We had 2 forfeits. Not great. Really not great. 2 games just did not happen. But yeah, here we are, recording the next 2 games. We have an e4, c6, and also Chaos Open with black, and Chessy Boy with white. Let's begin. Caro-Kann, knight f3, d5. In this position, you might as well just go for the exchange. Really, if you play knight f3, you should really be going for the exchange, Caro. So that with the, yeah, that's exactly what we have, and d4. I don't know why I got stuck, I don't know, I just lagged. Anyway, bishop g4, we have the pin variation, that's not really how it's called. Bishop b2, and knight to c6, so might as well just, play c3, this is the move here. But knight to c3, fine, we're going for a boring position. Nothing crazy is gonna happen. e6, castles, knight f6, and bishop g5. Bishop b7, a3, slight little move, passing it by to the opponent again. Queen to b6, attacking the b2 pawn, which is kind of hard to defend. Knight a4, well spotted, but the 800 attack and defend at the same time. Queen to c7, now the queen just goes to the c7 square. c3, and h6, kicking out the bishop. And the bishop goes to h4. Now the engine wants this trade because it thinks dark square bishop for black. It doesn't actually do much, and evidently it doesn't. You just have to be aware of the h2 square. Other than that, it's fine. But bishop h4 invites g5, which is not actually well seen by the computer. I actually think that white has some slight edge. g3, because g5 is kind of an overextension. Bishop g3, and now the queen moves again, which is kind of a bit problematic. Knight to c5. Knight to c5 is okay. The engine wants, I think, this first, and then knight to c5. I don't know why. I mean, it also wants this. But this doubles the pawn structure. It is, of course, not taken. This slow elo, obviously, the worst moves will happen. If you take this, then, this, and this is kind of a good pawn diamond, really. It takes away a lot of space. So queen d8, but loses the pawn, but doesn't actually lose the pawn because the pawn is not taken. Just simply take this. And after that, then they go here, then you go back. And let's say they take and retake the pawn. You are the one calling the shots because you have the initiative, which is kind of hard to understand why. I get it. All right, let's continue with knight to e5, attacking the bishop. Now the bishop takes, and the queen takes, and the knight goes to e4, which hangs a brilliant move. The move is knight takes e6. If you take the knight, there is mate in two. Like, straight up, you just get checkmated. If you don't take the knight and you move your queen, then I will just take this, I'm up a pawn, and you're probably kind of lost. I'll just take everything. It wants king takes here for some reason, because you play queen takes, there is rook to e1. And after castles, there is just f3, which loses the knight. Savage. Obviously, the 800 and something points obviously spotted this tactic and played knight takes b7. Queen to b6, and now we play knight to c5, going back, knight takes c5, pawn takes c5, and bishop takes c5. And knight takes c6, queen takes, and b4. I guess b4 isn't that necessary, might as well just go here. Just bring the rook to the party. This is slightly better, but the engine argues there's like, some counter shot. I don't know what's talking about, but b4 fine. Bishop d6 and takes, and rook a to d1. There we go, boys. The rooks are finally getting into the game, and black finally castles. By the time they castle, the light squares are simply not great. And rook d3. Trying to go for a lateral approach to the king's side. Not a bad move at all. And queen to h5, attacking the pawn. Queen e5, however, does not address the threat. Why? Because after queen takes, rook takes, queen takes, the pawn is hung with check. And by the time you move, if you move your king, I think you're simply just lost. So you have to block again, and takes, and simply Chaos Open is in an endgame where he's simply gonna be down a pawn, but it's much worse than that. Pawn endgames down a pawn could literally be the difference between life and death, and as you can see here in the eval bar, it's death for Chaos, and it's simply just not gonna cut it. And if you try to be smart here with like something like this, and you lose this pawn, you can stop my pawns, fine, but my h pawn is just a permanent threat that's just gonna keep being in your position, and I'm simply just faster than you. Look at how faster the ace pawn is compared to the other pawn. And you can stop this. You can put your queen right here. And if they're smart, they can probably take this, honestly. Like after this, and takes, and you just go with your pawns and you win this. It's very easy. So yeah. king d5, and simply chaos just got the smoke, and it got close. It got close, but queen f8 and stops everything, and king a3 check, and you stop and you sack, and you push the ace pawn, and you make a queen, and he got 2 queens that checkmated chaos. Good game. Unfortunately, chaos did not win this one. There's still a couple more games, and then Sunday there's, of course, the quarterfinals. Let's go to the next one. Alright, for the next one, we have Chris with the white pieces versus Kai with the black pieces. Let's begin. E4, E5, knight to C3, a Vienna game. We've probably never seen a Vienna. Or if we did, it's probably very rare, because, I mean, it's very rare to see a Vienna in this channel. So, kind of nice to see all this variety of openings. But you would expect that at, like, high elo and mid elo, not in low elo, because you expect London systems getting spammed every single game. Bishop c5, this defense, knight to f3, d6, okay? Bishop c4, this simply just looks like an Italian to me. Like, if you go knight f6 here, yeah, this is literally the Italian game, so kind of going to be a boring game. Knight e7, castles, and in this case, the engine argues for this. If you castle, you probably get destroyed. Yeah. So castles, it's close. It's really close. You need to be careful with your pieces. That's why the natural square is always better, because they go for the same thing. Their queen dies. Pog. Anyway, knight e7. That does not get spotted. Neutral castles and d3. All right, knight b to c6, and we have bishop to e3. An exchange, but with bishop b6, the pace and approach. Queen d2. Alright. Knight d4. Now the game is going to get really wild. You'll see why. Bishop takes, e takes. Knight to e2 and c5. And now c3. When you're fighting a bishop pair, you should keep the position closed to your advantage. You can focus on the king side, but you can also go for stuff like c3, because after takes and, let's say, like, knight takes, for example, the dark square bishop simply has no game, and by the time they do get something, you're better, and if they do trade for, like, this, I mean, white is better, and they have a better central structure. So, yeah. Queen takes c3, however, is played, which allows the very natural bishop g4, which simply does not stop the move bishop takes knight, which destroys white's castle. I mean, it's gonna be a thing. It's gonna sting in the position. Knight goes to g3 and bishop a5 attacking the queen, and then proceeding to snap take the knight. Not a bad decision. G takes and d5 attacking the center. Very good play for an 800. And now Chris takes the pawn here, and then takes. A lot of captures. There's a lot of captures here. I don't know why. But there's plenty of captures. King g2. There's a lot of bloodshed with the pieces, and now queen offers a queen trade. Do not take the queen trade, or if you're gonna take the queen trade, don't be the one offering it. In this case, you can take the pawn, and then you can probably, like, I don't know, reroute the queen somewhere. In an ideal scenario, you probably want to keep the queen around to create some sort of attack. You see those rooks coming on the king side? Yeah, that's what you want to be looking for when you got some sort of edge, and this edge is the damage structure around the king. But instead, Kai just simply takes it. Alright, boring game. Chris bails out of an endgame, and rook A, king f8, knight e4, f5, hangs a pawn. Beautiful, but instead of taking the pawn, first we'll take this and then that. And not only does Kai hang a pawn, but also hangs a fork, which is not spotted, but hangs the fork that way, and just the rest of the game is Chris simply converting. Like, it simply just sacks the rook for the bishop, gets the outside a-pawn, and just converts. Hangs the pawn for good measure, and just he won. Move 45. Kai just resigned because he hung a fork. And sorry about the phone flipping. I just moved my hand like crazy. Yeah. Fast game. That was a fast game. Alright. This is the last game for today. I'm not gonna sit here and record the rest because they're really late and I kind of like sleeping, so Chris with the white pieces versus Chaos with the black pieces. This game was phenomenal. It was the creme de la creme of the entire round. Frankly, I don't think any game compares to this so far. So, let's go ahead and, play. I mean, Watts. And English. Obviously, pair low elo with the English and you're gonna get absolute destruction. I mean, let's start with that. E5. G3, the English setup. That's what Chris goes for all the time. D5, and in this line, you shut up and take. But Bishop G2, and this is the King's Indian attack, but honestly, I don't think Chris knew that. I think he still thinks he's playing in English. D takes, and not retaking the pawn, but yeah, this is very much off to a very bad start. E3 is horrible because you need to retake your pawn. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you have to. Also blocks the dark square bishop. Also, I don't know. And now black setups the defense for the pawn. So yeah. Queen c2 and b5. Although b5 is horrendous according to the engine, but what does Darkfist know? I mean, it's gonna explode by the end of this game, so who cares? Knight to e2, bishop d6, and you saw minus 1.5 correctly. Yeah, I mean, it's just this move is not gonna get spotted if you take that does not get spotted, and the point is you lock everything down. Not right away. You gotta go f5 first. And if they try this, then you go knight f6 here, and this is just this is awful. You suffer from, space. Bishop d6 and castles, and Chris is trying to consolidate as fast as possible. Knight to f6, knight b to c3, and castles in d4. First of all, en passant. Taking en passant here, not very bad at all. And then b5, and if you move your knight, there's this. You just get crossed like that. And as bad as it looks, white almost gets out alive. Because if you try to do anything here, you're kind of fucked with white. So it's really not great. Rook e8. Hangs a pawn. Okay. If you take, and you take, I take your rook. Fair. Does not get spotted. Fine, it does not get spotted. I mean, it's okay. It doesn't get spotted. It's probably not going to get spotted anyway. Bishop g4, again, the same thing. It's probably hung again. If you take now, according to the engine, this is actually slightly better because you can lock it down and you win the two-piece, actually. So, yeah, it's kind of funny. King f1. For some reason, I don't know what King f1 is for. Might as well take... oh, that's a mistake. Might as well take, and then you can go queen here, crack at the queen side, something, No. King f1 is the move choice. I don't understand King f1, and it's going to be a problem down the line. E takes d4, and ladies and gentlemen, from now on, after queen c7, and finally the tactic is found, I want you to keep an eye on this king, on this queen, and the rooks. You're going to see something beautiful. C takes b5. Guess what, suckers? Actually, taking this is bad. Because you can trap everything, and apparently you have to sack your rook, and then sack your thing, and, yeah, not great. I don't know why the engine is such a hater. But bishop takes c6. And now we have queen takes. And as you can see, there's obviously a lot of problems. You need to sack back your material, which means you will be evidently... If you know this thing here happens, evidently you will be down Hold up. Let me count the pawns. Hold up. I can't count. You're not down any material. In fact, you're up, but you're gonna die. Because the queen and the knights team up there, and it's pretty bad. But b3 after queen takes c6. Now that is still there. It's still there, and it's actually way worse than that because there's this, and you can just kill. You're dead. There's nothing. Queen h1 is played, and now check. When Chris was done with the game, he said, "I was winning this for sure." I don't. No, I don't think you were winning this at all to begin with, because King e2. You remember what I told you to keep an eye on? This bad boy right here. He's gonna go on a wild goose chase. Queen takes g1, taking the free knight. Rook takes the bishop. He was there. Duh. You're still down a piece though, so I don't care. Check with the bishop. You're down. No, you're up. It's rook for bishop. Rook for knight. But the position is so bad that doesn't matter. King d2. Knight e4 check. And ladies and gentlemen, black hung. Queen takes e4, which is played. And if you take this, you get mated. Chaos Open spotted that and played queen takes f2 check, which hangs the game in spectacular fashion. The reason for that is king c3. The king is safe. Like, real safe. And as for king f8, you take a bishop. And now, suddenly, white is consolidated everything. And up a rook for nothing. And he's also up a piece. Don't forget that. The king is a little unsafe, but there's a lot of pieces to cover the king, right? And queen e1 check, any normal human being would go to the corner and shut the fuck up. No. King c2. It's still fine. It's still fine. I mean, it was still fine. It's great. It's still fine. And after this check, all you gotta do is block. If you block with the rook, that's also fine. You lose this, but at the end of the day, you have this. And yeah, this is not great. So queen d4 instead. And they did block with the rook and lost this. So queen d4 takes with the pawn and a takes. And ladies and gentlemen, once you're given this check, where would you put your king? If you said these two goddamn moves, you're right. There are no more checks. You need to trade queens probably. It's over. But if you said king d1, which was played in the game, then it's gonna get fucked. So listen here. So first of all, this king was started on e1, castled, went to went to g1, then went to king f1. Then a couple moves later, that king traversed to blocking with the knight, and then escaping back to e2 in a spectacular bomb cloud. And then it went to d2, and then it went a couple moves later to c3, went to the queen side. And then a couple moves later went to the queen side again, and then it was tucked away on the queen side for basically the rest of the game. Now it's going back to the center. And as you can see here, we have an almost perfect triangle. Queen f3 check. What do? Your only move is to block. You have to block. Because if you move your king, it's mate in 3. We block. Rook e8. And you need to play this carefully. If you play wrong, you're dead. So yeah, you need to be careful. The only move according to the engine is this, which protects against this and gives you an escape. If you play bishop a3, it's still fine, but you have to use your queen, right? After king c2, you need to go like, I don't know, queen f2 or queen here, something like this, Or find the perfect top engine move, bishop to e7, which no one's gonna spot, which blocks the rook's vision. And later you can go like king d2 or something. It's insane how insane this game could get. Queen f2. Okay. Rook d8 check. And now you need to find king c2. That's all you need to do. You need to find king c2. You tuck the king again on the queen side that you should probably never moved. And after all those checks are done, your king is safe and there are no more checks. Instead of that, the king goes back to the square he started. And now white is losing. It went from equal to winning for black to winning completely for black to winning for black a little bit, to back to white completely winning, and now it's back to black winning. Because of the move queen to c3 check, queen takes a1 check, and queen takes a3. And simply, white lost a bishop and a rook in 2 moves, and is down 2 pawns. How the fuck did it even happen? I don't know. I told you, this is the creme de la creme. And guess what? We're nowhere near the end of this game. Buckle up. Queen e2. Okay, we attack a pawn. If you take this, there's a mate in 2. So this is actually a good move. You threat a checkmate. And when I was watching this game, I was praying to the chess gods for Chaos to not find the following move. And he finds it. 8-6. Klutz! It's not because I'm rooting against Chaos. It's because I'm rooting for both of them. And I want to see both of them advance. So the ideal result for me will be like a draw here. So, yeah. Queen takes b5, we take the pawn. Queen d6, and then rook e8 check, going for the trade. Now, normally you wouldn't trade pieces here. But this endgame is a draw because probably perpetual and this game will just be sided a draw. However, Chaos decides to play on with a5. Okay, queen f5, queen g6, another trade of queens, and this is still kind of drawish. Slightly, it's probably the balance, honestly. My engine is not strong enough to calculate the ending. But basically, the way this endgame would proceed is like king f2, and as the game happened, king f5, king f3. And the kings would go on a wild goose chase. And after this, which is exactly what happened in the game, you need to start using your pawns. And h4 is the move chosen, but h4 is wrong slightly. You need to preserve your pawn movements. So eventually, one of you will end up in a Zugzwang, and, you know, it could end up something like this. And white is the one actually being overrun here, and they need to be careful, otherwise they will lose probably. So instead we have h4 right here, and then g6, g4, king c5, now the king moves again, h5. And like I said, if you push the wrong pawn, it could turn up really badly. And after g takes, which is wrong, you need the push so you can force a Zugzwang. And that way you can infiltrate over there, and then go here, and after this, this, and 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 after all that conundrum, both people get a queen, and either this game will be very, very, very long, and will probably win for black, or, I don't know, it will be a draw, by agreement. G takes, G takes, and this is heading for a draw. Very simple, very nice, very simple, very nice. And as they say, folks, even here I was not confident that Chaos would find the draw, but he did find the draw. And you know what they say, folks? A perfect game of chess always ends in a draw. And in this position, the players agree to a draw on move 62. That's the final takeaway. Happy Season 3 of Flory Lalika. Unfortunately, Cole will not participate. And I want to tear my eyes out because what I just saw was so perfect. So great. Yeah. Tomorrow there's more games. For now, I go to bed and I cry for hours. See y'all in the next one tomorrow.